because that's one of their ballads that.
Two people who had never really listened to SB19 walked into Lollapalooza as strangers to the group. They walked out calling it the best set they saw all weekend, and one of them almost cried twice in the same afternoon. Welcome back to Stage Wire. This is the story of how a 5-minute hallway interview turned into one of the most shared SB19 moments since their Lollapalooza debut, and why industry watchers say this is exactly how P-pop's next wave of fans is going to keep showing up. Let's set the scene first. On July 30th, 2026, SB19 walked onto the Allianz stage at Grant Park in Chicago and became the first Filipino act ever to perform at Lollapalooza. That same weekend's lineup included Lorde, Charlie XCX, Jenny, Tate McRae, The Smashing Pumpkins, John Summit, and the XX. Sharing a bill with names like that is already a milestone. Standing out on it is something else entirely. Context matters here too. The performance came just days after the Philippines Department of Tourism named SB19 the country's newest tourism ambassadors, which made the Lollapalooza set feel bigger than a single show. It played out as a moment of Filipino pride on a global stage, and back home, the DOT organized watch parties across the country so fans who couldn't be in Chicago could still experience it live. It also followed the group's sold-out Wackus at Simula trilogy finale concert back in April 2026, one of their biggest homegrown shows to date. So by the time SB19 walked onto that Chicago stage, they weren't arriving as an unknown act hoping to make an impression. They were arriving on the back of a genuinely massive year, and Lollapalooza was the next test of just how far that momentum could travel. That's where this story begins. Shortly after SB19's set wrapped, a member of OTAN, SB19's official fandom, was walking through the festival grounds and overheard two women discussing the performance. They weren't wearing merch. They weren't part of any fan group. They were just festival-goers who happened to catch the set. Curious, the OTAN member stopped and asked if they'd be willing to talk about what they'd just seen. What followed was a completely unscripted, unfiltered reaction, and it's exactly why the clip has spread so quickly online. The first thing worth knowing is that neither woman came in as a fan. One of them admitted she barely knew SB19 going in. Her only real exposure had been a clip that crossed her TikTok feed at some point, nothing more. No lyrics memorized, no backstory, no expectations. She was there for Lollapalooza, not for SB19 specifically. That's an important detail, because it means everything she said next wasn't fandom talking. It was a first impression, formed in real time, from someone with nothing invested either way. And that first impression was strong. She described the performance as electric, and she didn't stop there. She brought up their stage presence, their outfits, the sheer energy they carried through the set. She also pointed out something a lot of first-time viewers mention. SB19's performances include English translations on screen, so the emotional weight of the lyrics doesn't get lost just because the song isn't in your first language. That one detail, she said, changed how she experienced the whole set. Instead of watching from the outside, she felt like she understood what the songs were actually about. Then came the moment that's driving most of the traffic on this clip. During one of the group's ballads, she said she started crying. Not because she knew the song. She didn't. It was the delivery, the harmonies, the way the emotion in their voices came through the vocals themselves. She specifically called their voices beautiful and said the performance landed as genuinely touching, not staged, not performative. For a 5-person group performing in front of tens of thousands of strangers, getting that reaction out of someone who'd never heard them before is not a small thing. Here's where the story gets even more interesting, because the reaction didn't stop when the set ended. That same day, SB19 released a brand new single called Lawless, premiering it live for the very first time during their Lollapalooza set before dropping the official music video and single hours later. It's a harder-edged, outlaw-themed track, a noticeable shift from the ballads and R&B textures the group is often known for, blending hip-hop swagger with surf rock and cinematic pop production. According to both women, they went home after the festival and looked the group up, and the Lawless music video was one of the first things they found. One of them said she almost teared up again watching it, this time moved by the visuals and the sheer audacity of the concept as much as anything else. Two emotional reactions from two different pieces of content in the same 24 hours from people who had zero history with the group. That's not something you can manufacture with marketing. Then came the question that really matters for a channel like this one. Compared to everyone else they saw that weekend, at a festival stacked with global headliners, where did SB19 rank? Her answer was immediate. Best performance she saw all weekend. Full stop. No hesitation, no qualifier. That's a genuinely remarkable statement, and it's worth sitting with for a second. Lollapalooza isn't a small local show. It's one of the most competitive festival lineups in the world, and SB19 was sharing that stage with some of the biggest names in music right now. For two people with no built-in loyalty to say SB19 came out on top says a lot about what actually happened on that stage. They also gave SB19 credit for something that separates a lot of acts in this genre. Everything was performed live. No lip-syncing, no shortcuts. Rapping, singing, and full choreography all delivered at once without the vocals dropping off. One of them summed the group up as well-rounded, genuine, and meaningful, which, coming from someone who walked in with zero context, is about as strong an endorsement as it gets. And they didn't stop at praise. Both women said they'd recommend SB19 to people in their own circles, and that they planned on sharing the Lawless video with friends who are into music discovery. That's the mechanism worth paying attention to here. This isn't a label pushing a single through paid promotion. It's word of mouth, spreading the old-fashioned way, one convinced listener at a time. Zoom out, and this moment fits into something much bigger happening in P-pop right now. SB19 becoming the first Filipino act at Lollapalooza follows BINI making history earlier this year as the first Filipino act at Coachella. Two of the biggest festival stages in the United States, both crossed by Filipino pop acts in the same year. That's not a coincidence. That's a genre breaking into rooms it's never been in before, and clips like this one are exactly how that expansion keeps compounding, because every stranger who leaves converted becomes another entry point for someone else. It also helps explain why Otten has been able to push SB19 this far. This is a fandom that's already backed the group to multiple wins at the Billboard Fan Army Face-Off, and that same organizing energy, streaming drives, social campaigns, coordinated support, is part of what got SB19 into rooms like Lollapalooza in the first place. But a fandom can only carry a group so far on its own. At some point, the group has to walk on stage and convince people who owe them nothing. That's what makes this particular clip so valuable. It's proof the music holds up without the fandom doing any of the convincing. So what's next? SB19 isn't slowing down. The group heads to Japan next, with performances lined up at Summer Sonic in Osaka and Tokyo in mid-August, continuing a run that's taken them from a historic Chicago debut straight into their next international stage. If this Lollapalooza reaction is any indication of what happens when new audiences encounter SB19 for the first time, that momentum isn't showing signs of stopping anytime soon. At the end of the day, this wasn't a group performing for people who already loved them. It was a group walking on stage in front of total strangers and leaving with new fans by the time the set ended. That's a much harder thing to pull off, and it's exactly what happened here. What do you think? Does this kind of unscripted reaction tell you more about a group's global potential than any chart number could? Let us know in the comments, and if you want more stories like this one, make sure you're subscribed here on StageWire with notifications turned on so you never miss the next update. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.